Hello Internet. In today's video I combined fabric and epoxy to make this piece of artwork. So I've had this piece of fabric for almost a year trying to figure out what to do with it and thinking about different things. I picked it up last year. We were on vacation, my wife and I. She wanted to stop in at a quilting store. We had a look through there and I found this woodworking fabric in and amongst the rest. It's got lots of interesting woodworking imagery, mostly sort of an old-fashioned type look. But anyways, one of the things I've been thinking about is I've thought about cutting them apart. I thought I would cut all the individual pieces apart and then I would put them together in sort of a layered approach onto a sign that I'll probably hang on my shop door just for fun. So yeah, this is a just for fun project. It's not particularly practical. I'm just having some fun in the shop and I hope you have some fun too. Just in case somebody's interested, here's the details from along the side of the quilting pattern. Quiltingtreasures.com, 2016, Dan Morris design. I don't know if that would help, but there you go. So I borrowed some tools from my wife, but yeah, once I start cutting, I'm kind of committed. So. This piece I decided I don't want, so I'm going to use this one for an experiment. So my experiment, I'm going to practice with this. I'm going to put this on here. We're going to lay some, I'm using ArtResin today. And I'm going to mix up a little bit and I want to see how it adheres because I'm considering what to use for a backdrop. If you'll recall, I did the t-shirt project with epoxy a couple of years ago, and with that one I put a white background down. So I have a whole bunch of leftover cherry plywood from my kitchen project, so I was thinking of using some cherry plywood as the backdrop. For one thing, that'll let me put my channel logo on the project also, which means the cherry wood's going to show through, so I really want to see what this looks like versus if I did a white background or not. So anyways, going to experiment, so I'm experimenting with one of the squares that I don't want. There's a whole bunch of squares here and I'm only looking for like a 20 by 24 end result. So I've got lots of excess. So, and then I can move on with doing all the cutting of all these other pieces, can get cut apart while I'm waiting for the epoxy to set up. Oh, I just want a little because I think I'm going to need a bunch for this project. And stirring we will go. Partly I want to see what the wood looks like if I leave some of it uncovered. Well, it's nicely soaking through the fabric, which is good because you want the whole thing to be done. And while I wait, back to the cutting board. So it's actually several days later now since I did this test. In part I had other things going on, in part I just was sort of stewing on it a bit. So the word part worked out fairly well. The fabric part I thought looked kind of dark. And yeah, so I've done a lot of thinking and going back and forth on it. And I don't think I want to do it this way. I think I'm going to drop the word part altogether off of this. And I'm just going to focus on this quilted fabric stuff. But I think I'm going to do like I did the dragon one back there, is I'm going to use a white backer board behind the fabric. And so I cut up all the pieces and then I sorted them out on the table. Over here, first of all, like these are all mechanics tools, so I have a whole bunch where I'm pretty sure I don't want them at all. I got some painting sort of related items here that I'm not sure about, and then I started gathering them together. Well, actually that's not entirely true. I first just threw them all together and I made a pattern, and I found it was actually kind of challenging. I'll see if I have the still, I'll throw it up here. It was actually kind of challenging to get them all to fit. And you had to watch it. Like, my wife was pointing out that I had one piece where I had some pieces like this. And she's like, well, that looks like you've got a gun there. It's like, oh, yeah, you got to think about how you're laying your pieces out. So I'm probably going to do a whole bunch of sorting, take a picture, do some more sorting, take a picture, you know, and decide on what I like. But for instance, here on the table, like, I've grouped them all together. Like, I got 4 drills, I've got 2 saw blades, I got 3 that are sort of clamping oriented, there's hammer oriented, there's these skill saws, and really, you know, like, these 2 pieces are practically identical, so you don't want them side by side. Again, these 2 are almost identical. This is the one I've decided to feature. I want this right in the middle because I'm planning to hang this on the door. But like these 2, like, they can go in the background. This is the only square that's a measuring type thing, and I don't even have one of these wooden fold-up rulers, but way over here I got a whole bunch of the saw and plane, and these are all sort of old-timey tools. Yeah, gotta sort of need to figure it out. There's a lot of experimenting, I think. So here, for instance, is one arrangement. I just have 3 pieces left over. And, you know, I've overlapped a few pieces to get the coverage that I wanted. And I think I'm going to sit on this idea. I've taken a few pictures of it. I'm going to sit on this idea and see if I like it. And there's the reject pieces. Well, good morning. Like I said, I sat on it for a while, actually several whiles. Got a few other projects out of the way, and now I'm ready to move on with this project. I've decided, I've tweaked the layout a little bit, but on the whole, I think I like what I've got here, and I'm going to proceed with moving forward. So for the backing, I selected a piece of 1/4 inch 1/8 inch plywood, and then I glued a piece of white cardstock to give me a nice back. And then these pieces are all loose right now, and I'm a little worried about it, so I have some still photos that I took with my tablet of the layout, and I am just still here and there's a few spots where if I'm not careful I end up with the background showing through, which I really don't want. So I'm gonna sort of pick pieces out one by one, glue them over here, and I think these some of these places I'm going to add a few of my scrap ones. I'm going to throw them down so they can be a background, and I think I'm going to pick the blue ones. I'm going to go for a color and not. I also have these strips of the edge, but no, I think I'll stick with the blue ones. Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to put a little bit of spray adhesive on the back of each piece as I'm positioning. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this around. I had it turned so it was facing the camera, but I really don't want to make any mistakes when I'm doing this. So I am going to turn it so it's facing me on this side as I get going. And okay, so there. And oh, by the way, it is Saturday and my shop is under the laundry and there's no stopping the weekly chores from getting done, so you're going to hear some rumbling every now and then. I'm sorry, this is not professional where we can, afford to shut everything else down. Life keeps happening. Guess it's a lot easier than sewing, isn't it? Down to the last few pieces. Very happy, but I have just a little bit of white to cover, so it's not a perfect match, Not everything is going to be exactly where I had it originally. That's some of the reality of doing a bit of weird artwork. Oh. Last piece. And there we go. All the fabric is glued down. Now, I'm going to let this dry and then trim off the edges, and then let's work on getting a frame. I've done a whole video about how I like to make my own custom frame stock. I'll put a link up in the cards and in the description, and I did that the same for this piece. I got together some of my leftover cherry from previous projects, and I ripped it to about 2 inches, and I ran a couple of grooves down the side. I'll be rounding it over once I have it all glued up, which I'm going to do now. So here, finished fabric on wood artwork. And here is the frame. Put some splines in the corner that I found in my stash, and it just goes together like that. And the longer I work on it, the more I'm happy with how it's turned out. I think it looks really cool. Now, you could stop here. I could put it in the frame, call it good. I could get like a thin Lexan or plexiglass and do that. And you could stop right there. Right from the beginning, I had it in mind that I was going to pour epoxy on this like I did on the t-shirt. I'll put a link in the corner. The t-shirt project that I did a couple of years back, and I'm planning to do the same thing. I'm going to do an epoxy pour on it. Just having fun in the shop, just because I'm curious as to how that's going to be. And I just think it's kind of an interesting way to preserve a piece. My wife, very smart person, said, "Hey, how are you going to stop it from leaking?" I hadn't really thought that it was going to leak, but it might. So I'm putting packing tape around the back. So I checked the bench, and quite by accident, right here, it's level, and checking it the other way, it's level also, which is good, because of course the epoxy is going to seek its level. I'm using ArtResin for this. Not sponsored, it's just, I came across it, I thought I'd try it. Each one is 0.47 liters, so just under 1 liter for the whole thing. I measured the artwork, 16.5 inches, 21.5 inches in the other direction, and I converted that to millimeters, multiplied it out, and my math, backed up by Google, tells me that about half a liter will cover this to the depth of 2 millimeters. Now, of course it's going to soak into the fabric. I'm like, that's not enough. So 4 millimeters then will be about 0.9 of a liter to a full liter, which means I'm going to use the whole amount. One big mix, one big pour. checking my watch here. 3 minutes of stirring, scraping the sides, and it's turning a bit pearly, sort of white as I do that. Alright, that has been 3 minutes. And I'm kind of terrified, but here we go. Ooh, it is turning the blue darker. Nice. Well, I'm glad I used it all because it's covered, but it's not exactly thick. Okay, gotta get these bubbles out of here. Get the heat gun. Be right back. So I brought the camera in low and close because it is, this is like glass. It is crystal clear. There's a few dots still. I'm trying to gently get them out of there. And of course it's a workshop, so they talk about, oh, use a toothpick to pick out the dust. Like, you know, it's a workshop. I've got dust in here. So here's the end result, and I think it turned out awesome. Now, bearing in mind that this is the first time I've used this product or tried this sort of a collage thing, I think it turned out great. But let me go over all the little problems that I found, just in the interest of full disclosure. First of all, boy was my wife smart, because I'm sure I would have thought of it, but it tried to leak even with the packing tape here. So it's really a good thing I put that tape on. Okay, here, this is a really tight close-up because I'm trying to show it. There's this one piece of fabric here where the spray adhesive must have let go, or the epoxy caused it to let go, and it's lifted. And it's just on the edge of, I mean, you can, it is not smooth there. It is sticking out. Yeah, I've just spent the last 5 minutes trying to get it on camera, and the only way I can do it is by getting the glare intentionally in frame. So yeah, here, you see that sort of a little bit of an arc there. There's like 4 or 5 spots where there's just a tiny bit of dust or hair that got into the finish. It is by no means a perfect finish. It's really nice, but you know, it was left to dry in a wood shop, and there's plenty of dust flecks in it. One thing that's really neat is how translucent it is. Here you see this line, that's this piece of fabric behind showing through this one, and over here there's a little bit, and then here you can pretty much see under construction is showing right through this top piece of fabric. Over here you see these, this is not a shadow, this is the fabric underneath showing through. So that gives a really neat look to the piece. You got this translucency. Alright guys, that's it for this one. As always, thanks for stopping by. If you feel I've earned it, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one.